allergies, but we're here, and I'm here with a really special guest. We are here with Juck from Juck on Bucks. Juck, thanks for coming on, man. Your show's blowing up. You're doing a great job. How are you?
Great, buddy. And thank you for having me. You guys and I, we developed a friendship a while ago talking Buckeye football, and I think your show is excellent. I'm happy to be on. We chop it up in text message and DMs all day anyway, so we might as well do it here.
That's true. And then, as always, Dan Divjack is with me. Dan, what's up, man?
Nothing, man. Just excited to have Juck on the show with us. And, to his point, we've developed a friendship in this little podcast world. And, I just kind of want to give a shout out to Buckeye Nation. I went to a couple podcast shows and parties over the weekend when I was in Columbus. And, man, it's just full of great people. It really is, man. Nicest people in the world. Got to meet Doreen, the famous Asian Posh on Twitter.
Famous.
And she's just fantastic. And her husband, Darren, were great and very gracious and introduced me to everybody and connected faces with screen names. It was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. And I appreciate you doing that too, Dan. So if you didn't know, we both went to the spring game. Dan lives in Nashville, and I live near Kidron. And I am not very far from Juck. And as a matter of fact, I lived where you live. I'm not going to say the name of the town when I was in college. So I know the area well.
Have his groupie show.
No, I know. I'm afraid that the groupies would come find him. But if you didn't know, Juck's hanging out in the Sunshine State. It's not the Sunshine State, is it? What's Arizona known for?
What do we call Arizona, guys? I don't know.
Hotter than hell.
Hotter than hell. There you go.
I lived there for 19 years. It's hotter than hell.
Yeah.
So Grand Canyon State, though.
It is.
Plate.
I love it out there. My brother and I have been talking about buying a winter home in there because the one that we had in Florida got destroyed by Hurricane Ian. So, spring game was not spring lame, in my opinion, even though they did thud for the first quarter. So I'm not going to bury the lead, guys. Jumping into the transfer portal right away. Saw Dallin Hayden's thank you letter. Thought it was a little bit weird that he included Tony Alford. Thoughts?
I tend to agree. I wasn't expecting to see that, but he did just last year say that he came to Ohio State for Tony Alford and Ryan Day. And I guess they had a good relationship, but it would have seemed to me that would have been, I don't know, maybe a declining relationship towards the end there. And, we know that when Tony left, he didn't take it very, very well. And he said he understood. And of course you do, but I'm sure he still felt a little abandoned there. Who knows? But good for Dallin. I feel like he is a dude who got a raw deal at Ohio State, and I'll stand by that till the day I die. He's not I don't think he was ever going to be a wonderful running back for Ohio State, but he got a raw deal, man. It wasn't good. I don't like to see people get a raw deal, and it just didn't work out for him, and it's sad. So as far as anybody else that we see enter the transfer portal, he's the one I'm going to feel the most sad for because nobody else has a story really like his.
Yeah, I agree with you. Go ahead, Dan.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say it bothered me because you and I had talked about this a little bit. I think at the spring game, Dan, that Dallin Hayden, like his freshman year, single-handedly almost beat Maryland for us. And without Dallin Hayden, we don't beat Maryland in 2021. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen. Was it 2021 or 2022? One or the other, 2022. And the fact of the matter is, he did get a raw deal. Trey comes back, big money. Q comes in, big money, and he's buried on the depth chart again after redshirting. So, Dan, I don't know if I stole your thunder. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think we're going to feel this out throughout the show. Three of us on here for the first time. I just kind of echo what Juck said is that, it's kind of sad because, like, to your point, he saved our bacon in that game, man. Yeah. And, I'm sure he's off Mike Loxley's Christmas card list, because of that. But I'll tell you what's the most surprising thing is not so much that he thanked Alford, because depending on who you listen to, I always assumed that was a mutual decision or an Alford decision that he was going to redshirt. But, there's been reports lately that was a Hayden family thing. So depending on who you believe, but regardless, he did come to Ohio State because of that relationship he developed with Tony. So it's probably the right thing to do to thank him in it. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. The thing that's interesting is, he came out and gave a list of the teams that, have reached out to him so far, and it was kind of random. It was like
Mm-hmm.
it was Auburn, Georgia Tech, Colorado, Louisville. I mean, Tennessee and Kentucky were not on there. Missouri was not on there.
Really?
Michigan was not on there.
I saw
there was one other
Louisville,
random.
yeah.
There's one other random team on there. Maybe Kentucky was on there, but it wasn't anything over the top like I would have thought of. And it's a loaded position on teams. I don't want to say it's easy to find a running back, but the NFL will tell you it's easy to find a running back.
Yeah, it's devalued at the NFL level. So Cedric Hawkins jumps in the portal too, kind of buried on the depth chart, and then hidden behind that. And I'm sure you guys caught this, that Calvin Simpson Hunt actually played the most minutes in the spring game this year as for any DB, and most reps. So cause, effect, just buried. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was Aaron Scott that played the most reps, but it was definitely a DB. But yeah, no, I mean, between that and the class that's coming in, I mean, this class that's coming in next year is loaded. So, he's 1 year guy. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. He redshirted last year. It's a good business move. It's not surprising at all.
Okay.
Totally agree. Good move for him. Calvin Simpson Hunt. Wow. Listen.
Yeah.
I was really excited when we signed that kid, and it kind of went under the radar. I felt, which was surprising to me, but it's really showing they really like him, and he looked really good. Really good.
Yeah. Well, the thing that people forget is Jermaine Matthews came in January. Calvin Simpson Hunt did not. Calvin came in the summer, went through graduation and everything at his high school. So he was 7 months behind Jermaine Matthews, who took that leap because he was here in the spring. And I don't want to be dismissive of Calvin Simpson Hunt because I think he was ranked ahead of Jermaine Matthews, and as much as you want to use the star rankings because Dan hates them. But I shouldn't say hate. That's not nice. It's a political game, but so Calvin Simpson Hunt looked great, man. So I'm prefacing this with what do you guys want to see out of the portal? So Juck, in case you were ever wondering, I don't put kids in the portal. I'm very careful about putting names out there. I don't like to do it. I think it's kind of detrimental because I'm not at the Woody. I'm not at the program. But if you could go and and you're looking at our team and any key takeaways, do you think they're looking in the portal right now for anything besides maybe a tackle?
It's tough. I am kind of torn on the tight end thing. It's like, are you going to go try to get another one at this point? We all know that they're not coming around the way that they had hoped. Outside offensive line, it's probably the most concerning position group. But at the same time, it's a position group that you got a full year to develop before you're really going to be counting on them to play excellent. So are they going to go after one? I don't know. I think if the proper fit comes along, they will. I don't think they'll be actively pursuing it nearly as hard as they're going to be going after offensive line. I think they made that clear to us in his press conference. It just has the feeling to me like they are really going after a right tackle and they want to move Fryer into right guard. That's the way it feels to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And having said that, there's nothing that's happened today yet that excites me. You got the Savion Washington kid. I think where's he coming out of? Colorado, maybe?
Went to my high school, bro. He's from Akron.
Yeah, he's from the Akron area.
I remember the name when he got offers from us, right? Is he somebody that I don't see him as a plug and play starting tackle.
Yeah, he didn't
underperforming kid. Yeah.
To borrow a phrase that you used on your show this morning, Juck, a third string true freshman from Texas doesn't excite me either. He's not going to step in and, maybe some depth pieces just because recruiting's been off the last couple cycles, get some guys in there that, maybe not for this year, but for next year, but nothing's jumped out, nothing at all is exciting me yet. And it makes me wonder, what do we know? I think a lot of these schools, I tweeted out something earlier about Josh Pate. I kind of took a dig at him about this, portal madness that he mentioned. And, I can't help but to think a lot of these schools got ahead of it and did what they had to do to keep some of these guys. I think we did it with Kenyatta Jackson. So
That's a good point. And I got to say, we've all talked about this, the Josh Pates and the portal alarmists of the world. I mean, obviously, we know doing this, we see the numbers when we talk about this stuff. It goes way up. So you could say maybe there's a bit of that pushes him into this portal alarmism. But he's gone so over the top with this portal. I don't think it's possible to live up to the expectations of what he's been selling, to be quite honest. And then I hear this morning, on a show we all watch, talking about Louisville, 5 offensive linemen from Louisville enter the portal and what's going on with the offensive line coach. Does nobody pay attention? Does nobody know that Louisville just took in 30 players and 8 offensive linemen in the very last portal cycle? Of course they're going to lose 5 after doing that. It's just like, come on, man. Cause, effect, it all lines up. In most of these cases. This is nowhere near the big deal everyone's making it out to be.
Yeah, Dan has one of my favorite phrases. He calls them click whores. So yeah, we try to keep our show PG-13, but click whores. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'm with you guys. I think that it has to be the right fit. I listened to the day press conference 3 times because I wanted to make sure, see if I could. And I was joking with you, Juck, before we got on the show. Like, I try to read body language. I try to read where his eyes are. I try to read how he's answering the question, what his posture is like. And you're 100% right. It's Josh Fryer is going to slide into right guard if they can figure out a way to do it. And the other thing I'm just going to share is that I thought Carson Hinsman and Tegra Shabola held their water in the spring game. So watching it live and then rewatching it, and Carson Hinsman was playing at guard, and he came in as a guard. Dan and you and I have chopped this up before. I wouldn't be surprised to see him back at guard eventually if he sticks around. But yeah, I think you guys are nail on the head, man. I would not be shocked at all if come end of August when we break camp that we have a new right tackle and Josh Fryer is at right guard. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, because we're going to roll into the some of the spring game stuff now, but did you guys notice that Luke Montgomery rolled with the 3s most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of interesting things that happened out in that game, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm going to stop trying to figure it out, especially when it comes to the QBs, which we're probably going to beat to death here in a minute.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. Luke runs with the 1s for most of spring, and then he runs with the 3s. Dev runs with the 1s. I confirmed today with somebody that's been at 3 hours worth of practice that they said Dev ran with the 1s in every single drill, and then they roll Howard out there with, for the first drive. Can't figure it out. I have my theories. Some involve a tinfoil hat, some don't. But going back to the right tackle thing, I mean, our starting right tackle might be Josh Simmons if we can find a starting left tackle in the portal.
Yeah,
let's not forget that he played left tackle for the first time last year. What do you think about that?
Caden Proctor going to transfer for the 17th time.
Hey, yeah. If they could get a quality left tackle, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. But Chad, something you said I wanted to hit on. Talking about reading the body language and kind of reading between the lines at these press conferences. And the hard truth of it is, when we talk about college football, we get so little information compared to the other major sports that it kind of forces us to do that if we're really trying to break things down. And I get some criticism for that as well. But it's all we got. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
a lot of times we're trying to read, we're looking at the decisions made that they show us, and then we're trying to read between the lines as to what's really going on. So, I think you do a good job at it, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So, breaking news. I'm always scrolling Twitter when we're doing this. So Jacoby Matthews from Texas A&M, the safety, is in the portal, and Oregon was thought to be the leader, but Ohio State is one of the teams, one of the players. Ohio State, Florida State, Oregon.
He's a stud.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's an absolute. Yeah, he's a gamer. It's interesting, but I guess next year you're going to be replacing a lot. So,
but he started last year, didn't he?
Yep.
I mean, that's not a position that I thought we'd be bringing a starter in at, unless, maybe to Juck's point, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, maybe Ransom's not healing as quickly as they want him to.
That could be.
What a mysterious injury that's been.
Yeah.
That whole thing was weird the way that went down last year with Lathan.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan treats injuries like the NHL does, right? It's like lower body injury, upper body injury. Like that's all they're going to tell you because they know hockey players are going to go straight at that thing as soon as they know, and football players are no different. But to your point about reading body language, my brother's about 8.5 years older than I am. I've been in sales my whole life, and so is he. And he told me when I got my first gig, he goes, "Listen, you've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a mouth. Use them proportionally, right?" And so I picked up on a nugget. Since we're talking about that topic, did anybody pick up on what Jim Knowles said about CJ?
No,
he said he does his best when blitzing and directed, which I took as long as we tell CJ what to do and when to do it, he's a superstar. And that shed light on why he's not on the field yet or he hadn't been able to get on the field yet. So that's what I took away from that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out because Sonny's obviously the guy everybody wants to have out there, but CJ's been here longer, so we'll see.
Fair enough. Something else that somebody pointed out to me, and I don't remember who I was talking to. It might have been just a friend, just chopping it up. He said you have to think about somebody like CJ Hicks, who came from a little bit of a smaller school. He was able to make up for absolutely everything because he was freakishly athletic. So like he could take a bad angle and still catch the guy. You're in the Big Ten now. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty good point. I was like, well, yeah, fair enough. I'll share that. Yeah. So where'd you guys land on the quarterbacks after the spring game? Dan, I went into it and I came in hot and I was like, you either are or you're not. You're either the guy or you're not. And I thought like I would come away with a really, really good feeling and feeling very clear about where things landed. And it bothered me like as a fan, the way that they rolled the quarterbacks, because I feel like I didn't get to see everything I wanted to see. And that's me just being spoiled. But where'd you guys land? What did you think?
I can say for starters, it seems clear, and this is again reading between the lines and kind of looking at what they showed us. They didn't want them to come out and have a quarterback competition. There was none of that. They already know what the heck they want to do. They didn't want to see anything. That was clear, and that was annoying to me. I wanted to come out and I wanted to see Will and Devin both roll with the ones for at least 3 series apiece. We got 2 with Will, 1 with Devin. And, while I enjoyed seeing the younger guys, and of course I want to see them, I wanted to see the 2 guys who, we're told are in a quarterback competition, get after it. For me, this is so razor thin. I could go either way on this. Both of them bring their own thing to the table. Will, his experience and his physicality, the way he operates in the pocket, a bit of his running ability. Devin, a much higher upside to me. The things I just can't forget what I've seen out of Devin in his high school tape. I can't forget it. The dude has that in him. And, I'm not just talking, obviously, yes, competition's much easier in high school, but I've seen him make throws. I've seen the field dimensions didn't change from high school to college. The ball velocity didn't change. The ball placement didn't change. I've seen what this kid has. It's really, really good. It's very high level. And I would just love to be able to see him get the opportunity to settle in an offense for once, not be looking over his shoulder, be the guy and see what he's really got. And I think that upside is incredibly high. So part of me wants that, right? And then part of me is like, I think Will Howard is exactly like, I think we know exactly who he is. And is that good enough to win a national championship? That's what I'm teetering on here. So that's why for me, this decision is so tough. And I'm not factoring in any of the money or anything, anybody else's motives or anything like that. But just looking at what would I do in this position? It's so tough. It really is for me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I've got some really good information from somebody that was at a coaching clinic, but it's funny you mentioned his high school film before I get into that, because I went down a rabbit hole on Instagram yesterday with some guy, and he's like, what film have you seen of Brown that makes you think he's the guy? I'm like, his high school film. Go watch it. If you're looking at his film from last year, then you have no idea that he was misused. Last year is not what he is. what we saw on film. They were trying to compensate for Kyle, but I got something here. It's going to be a little verbose, but I think you're going to really, really like it. So somebody was at the coaching clinic that they had on Friday, and they spent a lot of time with Chip Kelly. And he talked about how he evaluates and grades his QBs. So again, a little verbose, but this is really cool info. So first, he looks at what the intent of the play is and the responsibility of the QB within that play. If it's a running play, for example, and the QB is just handing it off, not making any reads, he doesn't put much weight into, that part of it. Basically they can just fall over and be a successful play from a QB part. But on plays where the QB does have a more significant role, he uses the following categories to grade them. Assignment. Did he follow the assignment? For example, did he look off the safety, et cetera? Read. Did he make the right read? Effort. This mainly applies to run plays. Location. Refers to mainly ball placement. Technique. Hips to target, L shape on the throwing arm, whip in the wrist, and was there follow through? Another thing that Kelly mentioned in regards to QB is using him as a run coordinator. This basically means that the QB can be used to block the extra defender. For example, if it's 6 blockers on offense for 6 defenders in the run fit, on defense, a QB would be responsible for that 7th defender, and so on, if it was 7 on 7, 8 on 8. So how the QB can block that defender is by the following. Read that defender on a zone read play option, read that defender on an RPO, use eye control to hold off the defender in the pass coverage. But the idea isn't to have the QB run 22 times a game, as that's not sustainable. Kelly uses the RPO to protect the run game, and his preference is to have the running back run on all read option plays, if possible. As he puts it, if I wanted the QB to run the ball, I would call QB run. As he mentioned above, this simply uses the threat as a QB to block that extra defender in the run. So to me, that was really interesting because what I did was I went back and watched the film to see how these guys handled that read option and to see how I thought they would be graded according to that scale. But I don't know. I mean, does that lend anything as to, how Kelly looks at that and how he's grading these guys?
Yeah, certainly. How did you guys feel that the two of those guys did in that situation? To me, I thought they both did pretty well, but better than I thought. Devin, I'm not seeing Devin run like that. Devin really looked good on those scrambles, I thought, for sure. But as far as the read option, it's not something that I've really seen him do in that way. And I think there was only a couple of them that they did, but I'd have to go back and chart down exactly what I thought. But it is an interesting topic when you first started there with how he's going to block the quarterback, using the quarterback to block the guy. Go, hold up.
That's literally.
Yeah, block was in quotations every time.
Yeah. No, but that's interesting. That's interesting insight.
It is.
From
There's only one glaring thing. There's one play. It was the first play of Will Howard's second drive when they were backed up to the end zone, and he was about 2 or 3 yards deep, or maybe at the goal line. I mean, the defensive end and the outside linebacker both crashed the end of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they weren't respecting the quarterback at all. And he handed it off, and it was maybe a 4 or 5 yard game, but he literally could have ran for 30 or 40 yards if he had kept that ball, if not more. If you remember his play against Texas that he took 75 yards to the house. That was interesting to me. I think he's going to get dinged on the grading aspect of that. I'm not sure. I mean, I kind of looked at Devin's and then the rest of Will's first drive, and they seemed to grade out okay on that. Like they made the right read. The defensive end was respecting the quarterback a little bit more on both of their first drives, and Devin's second drive. So the handoff was the right way to go. I mean, it's such a small sample size, right? I think which is the biggest complaint is that we didn't get to see those guys more on Saturday.
Exactly. Come on now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, so I'll give you some stats.
It's annoying, dude. We got some little football. We're looking forward to seeing something fun, and obviously we're not tackling, and we certainly got roasted for that one big time. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've not tuned into maybe anybody else's spring game in my entire life. So I kind of thought this was just commonplace this day and age that nobody was really hitting. They're hitting everywhere. I went and looked. Mm-hmm. They're playing full on. Like I saw late hits out of bounds at the Georgia spring game. Alabama helmets were popping off, and I'm like, this is crazy. The risk is not worth the reward. I'm happy that the adults are making the decision at Ohio State, because I would certainly choose to hit.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to have some fun. I wanted to see the two guys going after it and collect some more data for us to talk about. But, it is what it is. Chad, who's your
you're good, man.
decision?
Yeah. This is it. So I wanted to give you guys some stats too, because I'm a stats guy. So Will Howard was 9 of 13, 77 yards, and Devin Brown was 5 of 7, 66 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown was with the threes, but he still moved the threes down the field. One of the glaring things for me was that basically beyond 15 yards, Will Howard was 2 for 6, and one of those was that insane one-handed catch, I think, by Emeka Egbuka. So, Emeka, helps him out there. And I wanted to hit on something else that Dan talked about, which was the zone read. The best zone read ride I saw the whole time was by Lincoln Kienholz. He had one where he wrote, he stayed on the hip of the running back for, I don't know, what seemed like a good 4 seconds. And then all of a sudden he pulls that ball and he's out the backside and he's, just running down the field. So one of the best ones I've seen, I saw all day. But I think if you put it like when you said you have to pick somebody and it has to be today, I'm riding with Devin Brown because I've seen enough of his. He has the strongest arm on the team, which is helpful, but his deep ball. And if you even go back to last year, the way that he can just drop it in is really efficient. And for the reason we won the national championship in 2014, and I will go to my grave saying this, if JT Barrett didn't get hurt in the Michigan game, we don't win a natty. We won a natty because Cardale could sling it 65 yards, and then we had Ezekiel Elliott banging it up the middle. And so we were stretching the field, and you couldn't defend the whole field. And in order to, win, yes, I love Quinshon Judkins. I love Trey Henderson. But we also have some really nice toys on the outside. But if we can't get the ball completed down the field to him, it doesn't matter. So my gut instinct is to go with Devin Brown. And it really bothered me what they did to him last year because I saw a meme and it was kind of a joke. But it was Ryan Day talking to Urban Meyer, and he said, what do I do about this quarterback situation? And there was a picture of Tim Tebow and Chris Leak side by side, and then Ryan Day saying, say less. So he used Devin Brown as though he was Tim Tebow. And that's not who Devin Brown is. And so, yeah, I'm riding with Devin Brown. There it is. Call him a shot.
My work is done here.
You've been locked in on Brown for the whole time. No
I have. I have. I feel like I'm fairly realistic. Like I understand what the knock is against him, right? He got dinged up last year. He threw a ball in the dirt, at Purdue, on a curl route. He got a little antsy, and the word you like to use, Juck, is frantic. I think that was more a product of, he was a first-time guy in a game last year. And he was in a situation that he really wasn't supposed to be comfortable with. But to your point, Chad, he arguably had the nicest touchdown throw of the year last year to Carnell Tate.
Mm-hmm.
Dropping that into the basket on, what was that, like 30, 40 yards?
Yep.
But I get it. He got dinged up last year. It's not part of his history. So hopefully that was a fluke. They did mention on the broadcast, Jenny Taft said that, Devin said he was just happy to be healthy. And that was a weight off of his shoulders going into this year. But to your point, and Juck, I've heard you mention this, like if we ever have to come from behind or throw the ball downfield to win the game, Howard does not have he doesn't have the track record for that. And it's been validated in camp. Everybody talks about him struggling with the deep ball. That worries me, man. That really does.
It was obvious even at the game, and I know it was windy, but it is who he is. Actually, I think you had a stat on his balls 20 yards downfield, something like 35% completion percentage.
Yeah, I have it.
It's just not a strong suit of his. We know that. So when it comes down to the nitty gritty, championship games are close and many times come down to your quarterback needing to orchestrate a drive at the end of a game to win the game. Can you do that without a longer ball? You can. But I don't know. Who do you feel better with in that point, in that situation? I would say Devin Brown in that situation I'd feel better with. But again, I don't know if we've seen enough out of Devin Brown for me to say that and really have anything to back it up. I just a feeling I got, and I do know what Will Howard is. And, the conservative part of me wants to be like, look, this is safe. This is safer. Let's go with this route. The football fan part of me wants to be like, man, put Devin in. Let's roll. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough, man. I'm so torn on it, but I do really like both guys. And to be honest, I don't subscribe to the Devin is injury prone stuff. I don't, I think that they're too much people saddle somebody with this kind of label without looking at the things individually. And when we look at those injuries individually, it's just not, you got the ankle down on the goal line that gets twisted up. That could happen to anybody, literally anybody. That's the sturdiest person in the world. Then you retweak that ankle. The finger, a quarterback busting his finger on a helmet. We've seen it happen a million times. It's not injury prone. And, then you have the other ankle in the Missouri game, which is the only thing I think you could point to and say, okay, now we've had a weird, guy on his own running and twist his ankle. That's kind of okay. Maybe you can point to that, but I don't think the other stuff you can tie in with that. So I just don't buy it. I push back on it every time I hear it. I think there are fair criticisms of Devin for sure. Like frantic, I call it a lot. But I also think that he's not really had the opportunity to work out that jitteriness. He's never had the chance to just be the guy and let's see what he's got. Some could say, well, most people don't get that chance. They got to show it first and then they get the job. And that's fair too. But the injury prone stuff, I don't stand for it. I don't buy it. I push back on it every time I hear it.
Well, a lot of people don't
Juck,
realize
I want to
real quick
ahead,
on the finger thing. The finger injury actually is one of the reasons I like him. Is he went to Day and he was getting frustrated with the competition in camp, and he said, "Let's go live." And that was a result of him, talking Day into letting them go live and making the quarterbacks live in practice. And the defensive lineman got in there and he snapped his finger on a helmet. So,
yep.
So that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Interesting, though, that you say that, too, because now we've got two situations where he gets injured, right? So the one, he's taking one for the team and doing that run and a goal line package, which, no, he's not Tim Tebow, and that's not his game. So he's putting himself out there in harm's way, and he gets dinged up. And the second is he wants to go live and play football like a dude in practice, and he ends up hurting his finger going live like that. So, the guy's got everything, every thing we love about a football player. He's that dude. I'd sure love to see him get the shot.
I want to ask you something, Juck, that you mentioned. You said that you kind of want to go with the safe pick, which is Will Howard. Part of you does, and you're torn, and that's literally I wrote that I was torn, but I was going to go with Devin Brown because we went with Honda last year, the Honda McCord, because he was the quote unquote safe pick, and he was the guy that wasn't going to make the mistakes. He was the guy that was going to keep the offense, ahead of the chains, and he was a statue on top of everything else. But and that's what I'm afraid of happening again, where Day says, I have all this talent. I spent $13 million or whatever it is, to bring all this talent together and bring him back. And then we go with the safe choice, and sometimes safe doesn't net you the results that you would hope for. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's 100% true. And what you're saying is, yes, they did go. They did have the same way of thinking last year. We're going to go the conservative route, start the safer guy, the guy that we think we know what his floor is, and doesn't perhaps have such a dynamic ceiling as Devin Brown. You could certainly say that is the same mindset if you were to go with Will Howard. But the difference practically, I think, is quite a bit. And that Will Howard has proven to me, from what I've seen of him, and I think to most people, that his ceiling is higher than what we ever saw with McCord. So we have seen excellent play out of Will Howard. I've never seen excellent play out of Kyle McCord, and I hadn't up to that point when you're making that decision. So maybe not quite so even, Steven. And when you factor in the difference in Ryan Day kind of allowing Chip to put the quarterback in harm's way this year, we talk about running the quarterback. Who knows how much that'll be? Most of it'll be on busted plays, but there was directive from Ryan Day to not that they don't run even on busted plays. They're not looking to go pick up that 10 free yards. The chains are going to be off on that. And we know that he's good at it. So, kind of a fair comparison. And then there's a little bit that's different to me, but I get what you're saying. It was a philosophy that clearly didn't work last year.
So a couple things on the safe part. I understand why we went safe last year, right? Devin was a redshirt freshman. He had no game experience. We didn't know yet how good our defense was going to be. We knew it was going to be better, but, we had just come off the Georgia game and the Michigan game the year before where they were giving up big plays, and that hadn't been solved yet. Now that we know what we have in our defense, which is an absolute Death Star of a unit. Now, my buddy from Michigan reminded me once when I used that analogy that the Death Star ended up imploding, but I don't care if it implodes next year, as long as it gets through this year, right? But now that we know what we have in the defense, and with our schedule that we have, and knowing that if we lose a game down the road, it'll be because we couldn't come back from behind. I can't accept that excuse this year of going with the safe person, whatever that means, right?
Okay.
Our defense is too damn good to have to worry about that.
Yeah, I want to tee you up, Dan, and yeah, it's 100% fair. I want to tee you up because
there also is a caveat there.
Yep.
There also is, what if Devin really isn't good? There also is that, and we lose Will. I mean, we can't factor that out. Ryan Day's watched this dude a whole lot more than us, worked with him a whole lot more than us, and he doesn't seem to have the confidence in him that some of us do. So that tells me there may be, maybe this dude just doesn't really got it. There is that too. That is a possibility.
Yeah. Well, we got to get through 2 weeks, and then we don't have to worry about losing Will.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to tee you up, Dan, and I'll go to you, Juck, next. So other offensive positions that concerned you coming out of the spring game, we talked a little bit about the offensive line, and that's fine if you want to hammer on that again. I have a couple that I have a surprising one, I guess. And so was there anything that you left the spring game thinking, well, we probably could use a person here or a person there, or we may have some attrition here, and so we should probably be looking for this?
I mean,
just specifically.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan. Just specifically offensive line for me, I don't feel like going. The tight ends are slightly concerning their play so far and everything we've heard out of spring. But I think that, if Keenan Bailey is a coach that's really worth his salt, he's going to get them in order. He's got the pieces to work with. Jelani Thurman is absolutely a dynamic tight end who just needs to be developed into the guy we can see that on the field with. And I think Will Kazmarek is also, I think he's a solid Big Ten tight end. I thought he had a higher ceiling. It appears he doesn't. But I think he'd be solid, and he's a really good blocker. So I'm pretty much just all about offensive line. Everywhere else, I don't think it would be possible to upgrade in this portal at.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the game, I was a little surprisingly, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but potentially receiver, depending on what happens in the portal. Like we're 2 injuries away from suddenly having a depth issue. But I was reminded that we got Mylan Graham coming in this summer.
Correct.
And then we've also got Demarion Witten, who's going to be starting out in the wide receiver room. So I have a feeling I just stole yours, didn't I?
You're good. Don't sweat it. Yeah, I did pick up on the receiver thing because for me, my top 5 right now are Igbuka, Tate, Smith, Ennis, and Rogers. So Brandon Ennis is like scooting around on his little scooter on the sidelines. And so you're kind of close to, an injury. And then and this is the same thing I hammered about on the running backs. When we're playing Akron and we're up 49-7 in the fourth quarter, do you really want your 4 and 5 wide receivers? So do you really want Brandon Ennis and take your pick. Bryson Rogers in there getting a ton of reps? No, you don't. And so depending on what happens with the portal, sure, Mylan Graham can get in there and get some reps, but it would be nice if you had some depth there, an extra depth piece, and they probably do. I'm not sure when Reese Stockstill gets back yet. I know he was injured last year, and so there are some pieces there. And you mentioned Demarion Witten, and the other piece was running back. I was super impressed by Sam Williams-Dixon, who's from the Millersburg area up here near me. So he did a nice job towards the end of the game. I thought he played well. James Peoples, holy cow, man, is he a man child? Did you guys watch him run? Good God.
The truth.
Oh, yeah. He reminds me of sophomore year J.K. Dobbins. So, so receiver was mine. That was the one I was like, and Juck, you mentioned tight end. I was like, well, I think people have really already focused on the tight end, but wide receiver, I feel like we're teetering on that. We have some really, really great elite upper echelon talent, and then a lot of youth. So, and that happens in college football. So it kind of just made me go, I wonder if they'll go, add a Dane Sanzenbacher type guy.
It's true. Yeah. No, that when you break it down like that, it is true. I start to get to the point where it's like, all right, man, everything can't be perfect. You know what I mean? Like there are these 85 scholarships and yes, it would be nice to add another one, particularly if they lose a wide receiver. I would certainly like to see one coming back.
Yeah. Well, staying in that same room, there's one play that was the epitome of why Jaden Ballard has never been able to break through. And it was a play where I think it was third and goal, and it was Devin's first drive. And Devin, it was called pass play. Juck, I think on your notes you'd said he went too early, but if you look at the film, the pocket, nobody's open at first. The pocket is collapsing pretty quickly. So Devin rolled to his right. I wish he would have done that reverse out roll to his left like he did in the Missouri game twice in the first quarter, because he probably could have ran it in at that point, but he didn't. He rolled to the right. He's still on the top of his rollout, 7 to 8, if not more yards behind the line of scrimmage. And Jaden is open, but he suddenly turns to start blocking. That's not part of the scramble drill. Like I saw that play on film this morning, and I was just like, you know what? That right there is why Jaden Ballard has not been able to break through to anything yet. I mean, he was at the first down marker. All he needed was to drift to the sideline, and Dev would have been able to hit him, as soon as he hit, at the top of his rollout. But he turns his back to start blocking downfield. I'm just like, yeah, so there's a little bit of concern there. A couple injuries could ironically make a problem in that room.
Poor Jaden Ballard, man. It's just like some
Ryan Day.
He's just happy to be there.
Jaden Ballard hate.
Some people just don't get it. You know what I mean? We've dealt with these kind of people in every walk of life, and we know it. We love them. They're great. They're talented. They just don't get simple things. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that's the impression I've always had about Jaden Ballard.
I'm leaving.
He's just kind of the dopey dude that can do it all, but except anything simple, common sense, anything easy that all the walk-ons can do, Jaden Ballard is incapable of.
Chad's the president of the Jaden Ballard fan club because he's from nearby.
Yeah,
he's awesome. Yeah, right. He's Maslin kid.
yeah. I can throw a baseball and almost hit Maslin. So, I don't know. Ryan Day talked about Jaden Ballard and like his importance and his role in the offense and his presser. So, and then on Sunday or Saturday night on the way home, Mike. So if you don't know, I have 2 kids, and my 6-year-old looks at me. He's like, "Dad, I have to pee." I'm like, okay, great. So we pull over in Manstucky, and my kid gets out, and we go into McDonald's, and I ran into Jaden Ballard's grandpa. He's like, "I'm just coming back from the spring game. How about you?" And I said, "Me too." And I was like, "Where are you headed?" He's like, back to Maslin. I was like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "My grandson caught a pass in the game today. I was really excited." And I was like, "Who's your grandson?" He's like, "Oh, number 9, Jaden Ballard." I'm like, so random people you meet on the road at McDonald's in Manstucky. But yeah. So anyways, yeah, I don't know. I root for him because I really want him to do well. But yeah, receivers is one. So I wanted to ask you guys this, and I know Dan, you sent me some stuff. So BIA fully back, yes, and dudes were on lockdown. Were they tired of all these videos that the Ohio State media team was putting out of these great catches by the wide receivers? I mean, what do you think? Where are you at on this? How good are they? Dan, I'll go to you, man.
All right. So, I mean, Denzel Burke, he all but told us, right, in his presser afterwards, a little 3-minute clip that we got of him, and he said, y'all been seeing these, highlights and stuff from camp, but, we've been winning more than losing in those. And I told you, I said, DBs, they're sick of those clips, man. They were all over them. Now, I do think that there's a few plays that probably could have got called, like, Iggy. I love Iggy. First of all, I love the dog in him. I think he's the reason that mentality changed in that room last year. The kid is handsy, like I don't want him dating my daughter, but I want him at DB, I want him at DB for us, man, because, he's got that one penalty a game. And with this defense, we're going to be able to overcome that. But yeah, man, that secondary is, they've got a chip on their shoulder, and OG's got him playing well. I guess Gary's back there now, but yeah, man, they're impressive. And Klatt all but said, he's like, man, no one's open.
Yeah.
I think that this
Juck, what do you think, man? They back? BIA back?
100%. This secondary is just got this attitude when you throw in Denzel and Jermaine with Iggy. I mean, these are three yappers. They remind me of early 2000s Miami secondaries. They're just big mouths. They shut you down. Hit you. They're just nasty. And then you got the cerebral leader, the Ed Reed, the Caleb Downs back there. And the guy who just everybody looks up to and respects, who's just about his business and does everything perfect. This secondary has a chance to be the best in Ohio State history. There's no doubt about it. And, when we talk about should they, complete their goals this year, it's going to have a chance to go down as one of the best secondary units in the history of college football. I really believe that. You got the pieces there to do it.
The thing that might have got a little overlooked too is like Lathan Ransom didn't play that much, or did he even play?
No, he hasn't played all spring. He's hurt.
Yeah. So, and then the player that one of my favorite players, and he has been for a while, is Jordan. Don't call me Herbie Hancock. And I think he, like him, like being a corner, but playing nickel safety. Wow, man. Like that's such a luxury to have a guy that can backpedal and flip his hips the way that he can and cover. It's what was missing, for me when Knowles first started trying to do this. If you remember that, the Michigan game or was it Michigan or Georgia, where Lathan Ransom was in press, zero coverage, and he slipped and fell. It must have been Georgia. And so, because that's not what he does. That's not what you put Lathan Ransom in an untenable situation, but Jordan Hancock can do that. So if you want to play press zero coverage and blitz the snot out of somebody, you can now, because you have the guy that can do that. So don't underrate Jordan Hancock is all I'm saying, because I think he is a piece that makes this whole thing go. He's that like random cog that you're like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. And if he wasn't in there, you'd be like, oh shit, why is that guy running wide open in the middle of the field? So that's my 2 cents on it. BIA is back. Probably the best group of talent I've ever seen at Ohio State in the secondary. And that's saying something, because we've had some really talented secondaries with Okuda and some of the others, but those have been individual players or a couple players, but man, oh man, talk about talent. Goodness gracious. I mean, Caleb Downs, Juck, you nailed it, man. The cerebral, Ed Reed is such a great comparison that I don't even want to fight you, even though he played for Baltimore.
If you really want to get nasty out there with that secondary and you want 5 guys that can cover, you can slide Hancock over to that other safety position and put Matthews in the nickel. They were playing him a little bit in the nickel on Saturday. I mean, think about that. Think about those 5 guys across the secondary.
Can we just look at the big picture for a second here, guys? And that's a great point. He can hit for sure. But when we look at this secondary right now as it's currently constructed, and then the 2 deep, and we talk about guys like Simpson Hunt and Aaron and Bryce, and then what's coming in next year. And I've gotten a lot of criticism for saying this, but I really believe it's true. The way this team is constructed, it reminds me so much of peak Alabama under Saban, when they just had wave after wave after wave, year after year, of the absolute best talent in the country in the secondary, and they coached them up, and it was just unbeatable. And I really think that's what we're seeing going on right now under Tim Walton and Jim Knowles back there. And man, it is so exciting. Every top corner and safety in the country wants to play there, just like they did at that point in the Saban era. It's just the way it is. It's the truth. People rail on me about it and call me an idiot. I'm telling you, this is what it looked like.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Back then, and this is what it looked like. It was frustrating.
Yeah, it drove me absolutely crazy when we were in on a guy. But man, you knew if Saban got into his house, it was over. It was over, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to start seeing the same thing out of the linebacker room as well. I think that that's coming, and not to like toot my own horn, but did you guys notice how well Gabe Powers played on Saturday? Just saying. He's the next. He's next. Dan, you watch. He'll be the starting Mike next year, guaranteed. If he doesn't leave, he's the starting Mike next year. Yeah, because Simon's a fifth-year senior. So Gabe Powers is next. He looks like he has filled out. He came in at like 215, and he is ready. And number 36, so he's ready. It's time. Juck's nodding his head. He knows. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. So defensive line. What do you guys think of the spring game? Anyone not named Jack Sawyer or Tyleik Williams stand out to you? I didn't pay any attention to JT Tuimoloau. I'll be honest. I looked at him a little bit, but we know what he is. So anybody jump off the page at you?
Yeah, Mitchell Melton. Mitchell Melton was a very pleasant surprise. We've known that he's had the skill and the size to do it. Of course, he had his injury. He's not someone, when I've been talking about the defensive line depth and just how great it is, that I really was counting on in my head when I was factoring in those numbers and the Cade McDonald's and the Hero Canoes and that whole second wave. And then I saw that, and then we saw Edric Houston make a big play, and it's like, man, this is unfair. Unfortunately, if we do lose someone who is kind of an impact player or a depth piece who's going to play in this portal in the next 2 weeks, I would suspect that it might be out of that group. At any rate, Mitchell Melton, fantastic surprise. He looked excellent. That's my one guy.
I thought Larry was washed up. I thought we needed to retire him.
Yeah.
Guilty.
Well,
Guilty.
Were you in that camp?
I was in that camp.
Oh no!
I've been in that camp for a while. But I want a caveat here. Not his skills being washed up, but the fact that they were losing so many recruits just based on the negative recruiting and the speculation that he was going to retire. And I don't feel like they combated it well enough. And it's just like, all right, if you're going to keep on letting this go on year after year, we're going to keep losing the big recruits. And, we had a little lull there with the big time recruits. And Edric, that was close. They don't get Edric this year. And I'm still in that camp, even though he's a great coach. Like, I'm still in that camp if they don't get Edric. So, but yeah, he's excellent. There's no doubting his skill at what he can get these guys to do.
Well, we'll get into some recruiting. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to touch on the Mitchell Melton thing. So if you, I think it was Berm that had a one-on-one with Josh Simmons, and he asked who the hardest defensive end was to block, and it's Mitch Melton. He's the best. And so 2 years ago, when Jim Knowles came in, everybody talked about Mitch Melton and the Jack, like he was going to be the guy that did all of that, and it's kind of gotten glossed over and forgot about, and which is shocking to me. But yeah, I think Mitch Melton is the real deal. And if we lose somebody, that would be really, really unfortunate. And he would be one that I would be sad to lose, because I think he provides an extra element for a rushman package that would be really great to have. So I good call on that, Juck. And the other guy that, Dan and I were watching live push people onto their butts and into the quarterback was Edric Houston. I mean, he just like his boy, because Dan said, "Who's 96?" And I was like, "I don't know. I think it's Edric Houston." He's like, "Yeah, it's Edric." And I pull it up, it's Edric Houston. And we're just watching him just walk these dudes back.
Yeah. I had to look at the roster too, buddy. I was like, "Who the hell is 96? What's going on over there?"
Yeah. No, I mean, I saw some good I thought the defensive line showed really, really well. I saw some really good hustle plays on that play that I described earlier with Dev rolling to the right. I mean, Tywan Malone chased him to the sideline, and we've heard about how he's finally in football shape and, he's going to start flashing a little bit. I mean, we're starting to look like an SEC team up front. Like we used to have one or two guys that you'd have get off the bus first. We're starting to have a lot more than that. You're shaking your head, Juck. You don't agree with that?
No. I just want to clarify. A national championship SEC team. I cannot
that's
stand
fair.
When we throw out an SEC, like every SEC team is just built with this crazy depth like this. That's not the case. It's clearly not the case. There's maybe one or two every year, but we're starting to look like one of those. I'm sorry.
Yeah. For sure. No, that's good. That's a good point of clarification. And that's when I say SEC team, I'm like in my head, I'm hearing myself say Alabama, Georgia.
I know that's what you do. But what happens is the casual fan hears that and thinks that every SEC team is just superior to all of us up here because they're all built like that. And that drives me crazy.
I've lived in the South since 2004. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. So my next topic about the spring game, and no one likes to talk about these things but I do, because I railed last year on our special teams just about every single podcast I had because it used to piss me off so much. Are we worried about Jaden Fielding kicking? Keeping in mind that he was a walk-on kicker, he's now taking over the kicking duties. We went out and got a punter that apparently can kick the football out of a stadium. Thank goodness, because the punt that I saw on Saturday was not good. I'm just going to say that, not good. So are we worried about Jaden Fielding, guys? Where are we at on this?
I heard we're going after the kid from Georgia Tech that entered the portal pretty much at midnight last night is what I'm hearing. But yeah, I'm a little worried about it. But huge caveat. I don't ever see Ryan making the same stupid ass mistake that he made against Georgia and having to rely upon a 50-yarder to win a game. I mean, with 50 seconds left, 38 seconds, whatever was left on the clock, not to run another play. I'm cautiously optimistic that this kid from Australia, the punter that's coming in, also knows how to place kick, and they're probably going to at least toy around with it. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a weakness.
I don't feel like there should ever be a time that Ohio State should have a concern about a kicker. They score a ton of points, kick a ton of field goals. They have the money to go out and get whatever kicker they want. And I don't think we should ever be in a position where we're worried about a walk-on kicker.
Yeah.
And it's something that bothers me. It feels like a big oversight, and feels like an oversight that is so easily fixable. So if what Dan's saying is true, I hope that's the case, because it should be something that is easily fixed. And the same thing with, like you were talking about last year with the special teams. Yeah, man. One of the more frustrating parts of an Ohio State team that was a year-long problem that I've ever dealt with. I felt the same way as you. It was just consistently abysmal, a comedy show, and it was really hard to watch.
I mean, we figured out going to Australia for punters. Can't we just go down to the border and get a kicker?
There we go.
I don't know.
Right?
I
Arizona State did it for years. The Zendejas
Yeah.
family. I mean, they put 3 generations of kids through college by kicking field goals for Arizona State and Arizona.
I mean, I do not want to be in a position where we have to kick a 50-yard field goal to win a football game. But sometimes you find yourself in those positions. And you think about freaking windmill kicker from Michigan State a few years ago that just broke our dreams in 2015. You know, like sometimes you need a field goal. And I don't want to miss another field goal because I'll tell you what, Ohio State would have, been eating chicken wings on the sideline against TCU in an Natty at halftime, just like Georgia was. So, it bothers me deeply the miscues last year. I still think to this day that the miscue on the our own 45 with a 4th and 1 against Michigan, and the ball gets snapped to the wrong person and cost us the football game. And so there's so many things. And I don't want to be the person that says, hey, we need to but we are Ohio State. It's just like when we were talking about getting Carlos Lachlan. Dan, you and I were way down on this list of people. They're like, oh, who are we going to get? We're going to get this guy from high school or something. We're Ohio State. We should be able to go pick out who the hell we want and put them in our back, and let them kick 60-yard field goals. Let's go. So yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm so sick and tired of talking about special teams. Special teams should just be that, special teams. That's your job. Go kick the ball, and let everybody else do their stuff. I don't want to talk about you anymore.
In trust, we trust. I'm glad he's involved. I love the advice he gave to Ryan. We can hopefully put that to bed.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So this is the segment of the show that I struggle with because, I always ask for other thoughts because I have hit the end of my show notes. So, we have a special guest today. Dan, do you mind if Juck goes first on his any other thoughts?
Absolutely.
All right. Juck.
Yeah, I got another thought. So
yeah,
and it's what you just said. There has honestly been a very long period in Ohio State history where they have not swung the big stick. They have more or less operated like they are a upper echelon team instead of a top 2 or 3 program in the country. And it's always bothered me. Like you said, when talking about Carlos Lachlan, yes, you're Ohio State. You don't need to settle for anything. And I don't think any outsider who really understands college football would think that you ever would for anything. And that goes with recruiting, especially. You should be in on every best player at every best position in the country every year. You're Ohio State. Know who you are and act accordingly. And I just want to say that for a long time, they've not operated like that. And now they are. And they are in almost every area. And that's why we're seeing things finally look like, wow, this program is set up for success at the highest level every year in a way that it's not been before. The depth at every position, because they've changed the attitude within the program and understood who they are and acted accordingly. And I am so thrilled by this. And I know it's an arrogant philosophy, but it's just the truth. We all know what Ohio State is in the history of college football and what it is currently now. Nobody could possibly argue that it's not a top 3 program in the history of college football and currently now. And they've acted like, they're a top 12-ish program in the past. And that's always bothered me. Now things are different. And that's why, to me, this is the most exciting time that I can ever remember being an Ohio State football fan. I think that we are on the precipice of kicking in the door and staying there for a good while.
I agree with you, man. I kind of want to be amen, man. Bring it. Let's preach it. All right, Dan, what do you got?
Well, on that note, it seems like they bought into the anti-bully campaigns, that are in the middle school and elementary school levels of our society. And they finally realized, Ryan, and I think a little bit of it has to do with Gene going out and Bjork coming in. He said, I'm going to be a bully. He got rid of his buddy Fleming, obviously 1 year too late. The extension will never be excusable, but it is what it is at this point. He just gave his other buddy a $200,000 pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people haven't talked about that. When those salaries came out the other day, Justin Fry's salary went from $1 million to, $800,000. My brother said, well, he's probably got a chance to make it up real easily in incentives. I said, I don't care. The perception is that Ryan's holding him accountable. Right. Yep. And that I love that. I love that. One little nugget that I took away from the weekend, I had an opportunity, when I had breakfast Saturday morning at the hotel, which am I the only one that loves the oatmeal at these hotels in the morning?
Apparently.
I mean, a spoonful of brown sugar, a ladle full of raisins, and that hot oatmeal, man. I love starting my day that way when I'm on the road. But anyways, I was sitting there and I was overhearing a conversation, and it turned out to be the mother of a recruit from Virginia, Joshua Pittman. And he's a rising junior linebacker. And I was just listening to her talk, and I finally interjected, which I'm sure is shocking. But, I started asking her, what did they like about their visit so far? And these are the things, I've got them noted here. She talked about the facilities. She talked about the trainer, the recovery room, real life Wednesdays, opportunity for after football, and what Columbus has to offer. She was really impressed that they had a plan for athletes at all levels, not just those going to the NFL. And then she was really impressed that they asked the athletes and had them go one by one in the room, like, what do you want to give back? She didn't mention anything about the shoes. She didn't mention anything about the championships. She didn't mention anything about NIL. Those were the things that she mentioned. And she happened to be an assistant principal. That was her career. So, you could connect the dots there, that those kind of things are important. But I was really impressed with that's what she came away being impressed with. So, it sounds like, Mark and Mick are doing a really good job talking to these guys when they're in there. And it's no surprise that we're getting the level of athletes that we are now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm glad that you like things hot and fresh out the kitchen, Dan. Real Life Wednesdays is something that I've paid attention to for a long time, and I think it's a really great thing that they do. And I'm glad that they noticed and brought that up, because that's something that for a lot of these kids, there is life after football. And I always joke that, like, if you played football for Ohio State and you did anything of any consequence, that you can be a business person in Columbus and thrive for a very, very long time and never have to really worry about anything. There's a reason that so many people try to get close to Ohio State football, and that's one of them. And Juck, something you said about, and you guys both talked about being bullies. And so this is something that I had proposed to Dan a while back. And I'm not the only one that said this now. Some other people on other pods have said it, but they said it after me, so I'm going to bring it back up. I still think it's Georgia, Ohio State, and everybody else when it comes to where we are in football. After Saban retired, it's Georgia, Ohio State for the brand, and then getting, we can't go get 25 5-stars. It's not going to happen. But I still think that you can kind of set your expectations higher now. And I really want to thank you, Nick Saban, for retiring so much. From the bottom of my heart to the top of my head, to the block O. Thanks for retiring, man, because you've made my life a whole lot easier, and it's a lot more fun to report on some of this stuff now that you're not there. So thanks, Nick. Appreciate you. I think it really is. It's Georgia, Ohio State, and everybody else right now, and everybody else is playing catch up. And I wanted to say something to those Michigan fans, and I mean this sincerely. I'm sorry about your recruiting restrictions that came out after the cheeseburger gate today, because you're already having a hard enough time getting recruits. And then Snoopy Sparty is now reporting that Michigan Football Stadium, quote unquote, the Big House, plans to be a completely kill-free stadium by switching to plant-based meat. All ice cream, cheese, and condiments will be dairy-free as well. Michigan will be the first college football team to have a completely vegan stadium. So that lines up with today's news. I have it. I don't know. I have a screenshot of it. I'm not like just making it up.
It's on the internet. It must be true. That can't be true.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, either that or it's a hell of a troll job because it's funny. But yeah, so that's my little 2 cents for today.
The name of that account's not Snoopy's Camel Toe, is it? Where'd that come
it said
from?
Snoopy Sparty. It's a Spartan fan, but I Snoopy's Camel Toe. I think Snoopy's a boy. We've really derailed. I'm gonna lose our rating on YouTube, Dan. Yeah. So Juck, I appreciate you coming on the show. I kind of want to give you guys any last words. So we're over an hour. We're an hour and 10 minutes. If you guys are still with us, if you guys are still with us now, hit the
like button.
Yeah, hit the like and subscribe button.
I'll let Juck finish, so I'll go first.
All right.
I just want to thank you for hanging out with us, man. Like, I really love your show. I like what you got going on. I actually start my morning with your show now. I was pissed a couple of days ago you didn't have a show. I'm like, what the hell, Juck? Like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I
was
felt
traveling. Leave him alone.
I felt incomplete. No, man, you got good stuff going. I think you're a lot like us in the sense that you're just a fan, and I think that's why you're doing so well. So, and when you're, one little funny story I want to share. Your son sent me his resume so I could get it over to those guys in Columbus, and I don't know if he told you this, but when he's got his picture on his resume, and I texted him. I said, "Man, your father's DNA is strong." I mean, he is your spitting image. But yeah, man, just appreciate you, and it's fun to be a part of all this.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, by the way, Dan, he had an interview and it went great. Appreciate you having me out there. And
awesome.
That is kind of a perfect segue into, I started a show maybe 3 months ago. The number of new friends I've made and connections, kind of like what you talked about earlier with Doreen, who's wonderful. The community that I've kind of been embraced in and been introduced to, unbelievable. It's by far been the most fun part. And it's kind of what I was looking for. And I'm so happy I found it. And you guys are a big part of that. And I really appreciate your friendship and having me on today. I had a blast. But like you were saying, Chad, there is no team, and it's many thanks to Ryan Day, who benefited as much as Ohio State from Nick Saban's departure. And they absolutely took themselves, pulled them right up into that spot, stuck their flag in the ground and said, we're here. This is who we are. We're the best in the country. And the only other team on that level is Georgia. No question about it. And when we look at the history of these programs, Georgia's maybe the 12th best program in the college football history. To think that they will stay there, no, I don't think they will. Ohio State is now the premier college football program, and all it needs is to cash in. I think they will. I think they will this year. And that's it. Thanks for having me on the best damn podcast in the land.
Right.
Yeah, appreciate you, Juck, and I appreciate you, Dan. And yeah, this has been great. We've been chopping it up, having a good time, and I appreciate you guys a lot. It's I agree with you. I think if we get that chip this year, it just the party keeps going, man. The party keeps going, and then there's no stopping this train. And in 4 years, when Brian Hartline's the head coach, we'll still be partying. So. Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate your thoughts. And I hope you guys enjoyed our mashup combo. Like, it's just something we just figured we'd try. So again, appreciate you guys. If you get a chance and you're not subscribed to Juck on Bucks, jump on his pod. I start my morning with it like Dan does now. And it's been a change because I've switched a little bit from some of the other pods to just listening to the Juck. So you guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging with us. Enjoy your day. Stay safe out there. And as always, go Bucks.
Go Bucks.